إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakumullah khairan for taking your time out, inshallah. We won't take up too much of your time. I know if many of us have our normal ibadah that we do after our Asr Salah. So inshallah within 20 minutes or 25 minutes, hopefully we will cover the objectives of today, inshallah. The focus is going to be on Zakat. We're going to look at the key Islamic rulings and how do we actually go about calculating Zakat. We'll explore this from the legal basis of Zakat in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and also what conditions make Zakat obligatory on people. We'll discuss something called Nisab and something called Hawl. These are two terms which are important for us to understand. And then we will look at what type of assets are zakatable, and we'll then work through a few examples, inshallah. So what does the word zakah mean? Zakat linguistically means to purify, to cleanse, to clean. That's what it means linguistically. From a Sharia perspective, it means it's an obligatory financial worship. So there's certain types of worship which are bodily. So for example, we prayed Salah. This is a bodily act of worship. When we recite the Quran, it's a bodily act of worship. Other types of worship are a mixture of both financial and also physical, like performing Hajj. So in performing Hajj, there is both a financial aspect to the worship and also a bodily aspect to the worship. Zakat is on the other side of the spectrum. Like Salah is on one side of the spectrum, only body. Hajj is in the middle. But Zakat is just financial, okay, where it's an act of worship. What are its objectives? Its objectives are a spiritual purification, because we have a natural tendency or desire for wealth and for money. And secondly, it's also to circulate wealth amongst the community and to alleviate poverty. Allah SWT mentions in the Quran, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا, meaning take from them the zakat. Okay, take from them zakat. For what reason? تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا, so that you may purify and cleanse them as a result of it. وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ, and make dua for them. إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ سَكَنٌ لَهُمْ, for indeed your salah is a contentment for them. Wallahu Sami'un Alim, and Allah SWT is all hearing and all knowledgeable. Another ayat in which Allah SWT mentions in Surah Baqarah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu anfiqu min tayyibati ma kasabtum, that spend from the good things that you have earned. Wa mimma akhrajna lakum min al-ard, and also from that which we have extracted for you from the earth. وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثَ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ وَلَسْتُمْ بِآخِذِيهِ, and don't spend from the poor quality things that you have, which you yourself would not take, إِلَّا أَن تُغْمِدُوا فِيهِ, except that you would feel it, taking it begrudgingly or looking down. وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ, no, Allah SWT is independent from this and is all praiseworthy. Sometimes when we're gathering clothes at the end, and the clothes are torn and tattered, and we put them in the charity bag and we give it in charity. So those clothes that we don't want to wear ourselves, we place in the charity bags. Well, if we don't want to wear these ourselves, then are we really giving charity, or we're just getting rid of our rubbish? So rather we should just get rid of our rubbish. If you're going to give something, at least something should be worn. I appreciate a second hand, but this is something that a person can wear and would feel comfortable to wear. So whenever you're giving something in the path, it's not something that you have no use for and you want to discard. Give something which you still value, you still want to keep, so at least you can expect some ajr in return. What is the legal status of zakah? It is one of the 5 pillars. It's mentioned. We know that in the Quran over 30 times zakat is mentioned with salah. Repeatedly, zakat is mentioned with salah. So like we shouldn't differentiate, so we're not told the reason why they're mentioned together is so we don't differentiate between the two of them. We don't say, okay, I'm going to pray salah, but I'm not going to give my zakah. Or we give value for the salah, but we don't give the value for the zakah. We know, for example, certain tribes, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, they refused to give zakah. They said, we pray to Allah, Allah is here, we'll carry on praying to Allah. But we used to give zakat to the Prophet ﷺ, he's no longer here, so we're going to refuse to give it. As a result, Sayyid Abu Bakr waged war against them for saying that this is part of your deen. And by denying it, it puts a person into kufr. There is an ayat which mentions which groups of people should receive zakah. إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ. So these are the 8 categories of zakah. We'll explain these categories shortly, inshallah. As I mentioned, the verses like وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ, establish salah and give zakah. And then the hadith we have, بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ, Islam is established on 5 things. What are the 5 things? شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة. So we can't differentiate these things at all. Otherwise we are sinful. And if we deny them, we come out of the fold of Islam. So who must give zakah? Who is responsible? And remember, zakah is not a donation. You are not donating zakah. Zakah is something which is fard. You have to give zakah. You're not doing anybody a favor. First of all, obviously the person has to be a Muslim. Secondly, he should have ownership of this wealth. Thirdly, the wealth should reach nisab. So nisab is a value that the Prophet ﷺ set. So do we know what the nisab is of silver at the moment? 2,500 or 2,500? It's a lot more than that now. Silver and gold has been going through the roof. So if there's any investors over here, they'll know that silver is going up and gold is going up. Silver is around £1,000. Okay, and gold is around £10,000.
25 is 2.5%.
Correct. No, I'm talking about the nisab itself. Like how much wealth must you have in order to trigger zakat? So the wealth that you have, how much wealth should you have to trigger zakat? So if you have nisab, which is around £1,000, then you have to give zakat. Then I will explain what percentage you take from there. A year has to have passed on it the first time round, and it should be in excess of one's basic needs. The gold value or the gold quantity which is given is 87.48 grams, and that gold equates to around £10,000. And the silver is 612.36 grams, which is around £1,000. We tend to go by the silver value. Why? Because it is closer to giving. We should be giving zakah rather than not giving zakah. So the ulama say that we should use the silver standard. What type of things does it apply to? It applies to cash. It applies to trade goods if you run a business. It applies to investments. It applies to livestock. It applies to all things which are considered as an asset. Some things you don't need to wait for a whole year to pass. So if a person is involved in farming, then you don't wait a year to pass. You give the zakat immediately once you have farmed the goods. On cash and savings, as our esteemed colleague at the back said, 2.5% of the total amount. On gold and silver, 2.5%. On any business assets, it's 2.5%. But if you are dealing with crops, it's 5% or 10% is the total that's given. Where do we look? We look in our savings account. We look in our current account. Any foreign currency that we might have. Any digital wallets. Obviously nowadays people deal with digital currency. And the total value is you add all these up. All these, if there's any gold, there's any silver, anything like that, all is added up. And if there's any immediate debts, then you may deduct immediate debts and then you take 2.5%. The best way to take 2.5% is to divide by 100 and times 2.5. Or if you know a quicker way, then use that one. Gold and silver, as I mentioned, is on all forms. So even women's jewelry, rings, obviously men don't wear gold or men don't wear silver, but women are wearing the jewelry. This could also be if you've got little gold bars inside your house. Who's got gold bars inside the house? I didn't think so. If you've got little gold bars inside your house, or if you've got other gold nuggets, anything, then all the total weight and 2.5% of that. When it comes to people who are businessmen or in trade, then they need to look at their inventory, any raw material that they have. Say you run a bakery. So when you run a bakery, you've got flour, you've got eggs, you've got all sorts, sugar and things like that. You make the total value of that and also the cash value and anything which you've sent an invoice for and that invoice requires paying. You include that as well. You may take out short-term liabilities. So for example, your electric bill for the month or your gas bill for the month, they can be deducted. And that's what you do on business trade. When it comes to investments, say you have shares, stocks and shares, and the shares you have is for trading. So you're buying shares and you're selling shares. Okay, buying and selling shares. Then you find the full market value of the shares and you give 2.5% of that. If you have shares for a long term, okay, you have shares for a long term, your maqsad is not to buy and sell them. You want to keep them for 5 years, you want to keep it for 10 years, you want to keep it for 20 years, and all you're doing is drawing dividends from there. Then you will do zakat on the portionable amount of the stock which is zakatable, like I explained to you if you owned a bakery. When it comes to sukuk, okay, then this is what the sukuk is based upon. So this is like an Islamic bond. So whatever the sukuk is based upon. If you own property which you rent out, then there is no zakat due on the property. But any rent that you get, you will add that total rent, whatever is left over, to the rest of your assets and give zakat accordingly. We've talked about what kind of debts can be deducted. So if there's immediate obligations which are due within that year, then you may deduct those which are due in that year. So if, say, for example, if a person has, say, even a mortgage, then they may deduct only the capital payments. They cannot deduct the interest payments. But if they've got any other debts, let's just say I owe a brother £5,000 and that brother says to me, I want you to pay in 3 months' time. Now that is within a year. So I may deduct that £5,000 from my total assets. So let's just see if you're going to get all these numbers in your head. So I've got £12,000. I've got £4,000 gold. So how much have I got in total so far? 16,000. I've got business stock of 6,000. 22,000. And I've got debts of 2,000 that I need to pay within the year. So how much is the total? 20,000. Good. Got a mathematician here. So 20,000. So let's really test his maths. What's 2.5% of 20,000? 2,050. Ooh. 500. 500? It is 500. You took a lucky guess. Yeah, 500. Yeah. It's 500. So 500 is the total. So from £20,000, the zakat will be 500. Okay. What do people commonly make mistakes? What kind of errors do people make mistakes? They don't include receivables, meaning they've charged an invoice, and because they haven't got the payment, they don't add that. Once you've charged the invoice, you include that payment. Okay, sometimes they don't take into consideration the inventory that they have. Other times it can be, the battery's gone. Yeah. Sometimes what can happen is that we ignore some gold jewelry, The wife has got rings and she's forgot to include them. We sometimes include the Gregorian calendar instead of the lunar calendar. So zakat is based on the lunar calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, which is the kind of January, February, March, April calendar. Reason being is, what's the reason? Why do we go by the lunar calendar and not the Gregorian calendar? Well, that's absolutely right. We do follow it. But what's the difference between the two? Yeah, one is about 10, 11. Sorry, yeah, go on, you can answer. Yeah, there's about 10, 11 days difference. Yeah. That's why Ramadan keeps getting earlier. Okay, you'll notice that it was in May, then it goes in April, then it'll come in March, then it'll come in February, then it'll come in January, and each year goes around. And if a person gave their zakat according to the solar calendar, then they would be giving their zakat too late. So we give it according to the Islamic calendar. So how do we determine this nisab date? So when a person reaches baligh, becomes baligh, okay, 13 years old, 14 years old, becomes baligh. So we should check with our children or grandchildren. Once this person becomes baligh, what we determine is what money does this person have. Okay, so it might be that grandparents are giving him money, parents are giving him money. So when he reaches the age of, say, 14 and a half or 13 and he's become baligh now. So we say to him, young man, young lady, check how much money you have. We should be teaching them from a young age, like we teach our children to pray salah from 7 years old. We should be teaching them also about zakat as well. And we should also be teaching them about hajj. And we should also teaching them about siyam. It's not just that salah is fard. All these things are fard. So what we do then is we say, okay, let's check your bank account. We might have a trust fund in their name. We might have a bank account in their name. We may, if it's a girl, giving her some gold as a hadiya on her birth, or she finished the khatam of Quran or something, so she might have assets. If that is above the nisab, and the nisab is around £1,000, obviously it changes depending on the price of silver. So let's just say it's around £1,000. Then we say, okay, you have more than the nisab. Let's make a note of this date that you became baligh. So let's just say it's the 3rd of Dhul Qa'dah, or the 7th of Dhul Hijjah, or the 15th of Ramadan, or the 12th of Sha'ban, or the 15th of Shawwal. Whatever the date is, you make a note of it. You now wait a whole year. So if that was done in 1446, you now wait till 1447. Okay? And on the same day, you now check again all the accounts. And if there is still above nisab, then they will give zakat. So whatever the amount is, let's just say it's £1,000 times 2.5%. What's 2.5% of £1,000? £25. Yeah, this brother needs to give more zakat. Yeah, £25. Okay, the easy way to remember is in every 100 is £2.50. In every 100 is £2.50. So if 100 times 10 is 1,000, then £2.50 times 10 is 25. And just keep that in your mind, inshallah. But another way to remember is in every £1,000 it's £25. In every £1,000 is £25. All right. So if she now has, your daughter now has £1,000 in her bank account, she will give £25 as zakat. Then every year on that same day, she will calculate it and give zakat. And that's what will carry on. It might be, let's just say 15th of Shawwal is her nisab date. And Eid is on the, when is Eid? 1st of Shawwal. Okay. So everybody's given hadiya to her. Her parents have given hadiya to her uncle, her aunties, her mom, her dad. And instead of £1,000, now she has £5,000. But she's only had the £5,000 for 2 weeks because she got it on the 1st of Shawwal. She will still add that to all her wealth and give her zakat on the total. Because once the nisab is triggered, then annually she will give on that date. The ayat that we mentioned, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْآمِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, and all the list that we gave. Fuqara means the poor, faqir. Miskeen means the needy. There's ikhtilaf amongst the fuqaha who is poorer. The fuqara are poorer or the masakeen. But for now, for us, they're poor. Amilina alayha are those that the government employs to distribute zakat. Okay. Mu'allafati qulubuhum, they are those new Muslims who come into Islam, and as they've come into Islam, their family have abandoned them. Now, oh, you've converted to Islam, we're not going to help you anymore. Get out of our house. Right? Leave the home. So now this poor person has to start from scratch so they can receive zakat. Well, and then it mentions the slaves, those in debt, fi sabilillah, and the wayfarers. They are the 8 categories. Some people also ask, what's the difference between sadaqah and zakah? Any idea what's the differences between sadaqah and zakah?
One is farz, and you have to go to specific people.
Yes.
The other one can be anything.
Correct. So he's mentioned 2 already. So one is that it's obligatory. Zakat is obligatory. You don't have a choice, whereas sadaqah is voluntary. Secondly, zakat is fixed. You can't give it to a masjid project. You can't give it to something else. Zakat has to go to those 8 categories. Whereas sadaqah can be given even to a non-Muslim to help them. Okay, that's more flexible. Last, and we mentioned the restricted recipients and the rules. One is, the last one, which is a bit difficult, is that zakat is always based on assets. Sadaqah can be any amount and it can be anything, any form. That's why I'm always careful that I don't necessarily mention sadaqatul fitr. I call it zakatul fitr. So what we do is when we finish Ramadan, before the Eid Salah, we sometimes call it fitrana, we should be giving the sadaqatul fitr, but I prefer to call it zakatul fitr. Why? Because it is compulsory. It is not voluntary. Really, in these last 10 days, because if we don't know a poor person and we're going to give it to a charity or we're going to give it to somewhere, then we should try to give it in these last 10 days because it may take a while for them to receive it if we're going to send it to another country abroad. Because really, before Eid Salah, we should try to give it to the person, so whilst we're eating chicken burgers and chicken legs and kebab and biryani and everything else on Eid day, that they can also eat something as well. So just to summarize, zakat is a worship and also economic justice. It is an ibadah. Just because it is money does not mean it is not an ibadah. It is calculated on the net wealth. Calculated on the net wealth. Is 2.5% for most of the assets, and we've got a good idea now. So in every £1,000 it's £25. Okay? In every £1,000 it's £25. It's a precise calculation. Do we all know our nisab dates? So I'm not going to ask you, put you on the spot, but do we all know our nisab dates? Yeah? I'll ask my driver there, what's your nisab date?
1st of Ramadan.
1st of Ramadan. Some people do tend to fix Ramadan as their nisab date. It's not, you don't have to, really it's the time when a person reaches bulugh and has the assets, but because sometimes people forget, what they do is they use that, but as long as Ramadan comes before your nisab date, it's not a problem. But if Ramadan comes after your nisab date, then there is an issue, obviously, because you're delaying the zakat. Anybody else know the nisab date?
85 grams gold.
Tariq. Yeah, the date. When is your nisab date? Anybody else know nisab date? Yes, brother.
Question based on that. Does it have to be the exact same date?
Yes, it has to be the exact same date.
In the past, if you haven't followed that, how would we rectify this?
You try to get it to the best of your ability. So you're a relatively young man, so bulugh wasn't that far away for you. For somebody like me who has to kind of look into the books of history to remember the date. And it's somewhere sitting between the dinosaurs and when people decide to walk, you start using computers. So around that time, so it's not too far for you. So you could estimate to the best of your ability, and then you would obviously relay that to a Gregorian date. From the Gregorian date to an Islamic date, and then work accordingly. Otherwise, if you can't remember it exactly, then you just have to select a date and hope for the best. And then,
First of Ramadan.
yeah, and then you fix that. People do say Ramadan, but really it's not necessary. The time really is when it is your nisab date. It's like saying, I'm going to perform Maghrib Salah now because Maghrib Salah is a good Salah. But no, we perform Maghrib Salah at the time of Maghrib. So similarly, we give zakat at the time it is due, which is on our nisab date. But for people who do forget, the ulama say, okay, you can use maybe a date in Ramadan because that helps a person remember. Okay? Anybody else remember nisab date, or that's it? Shall we move on?
Can I ask one question?
Of course you can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we like to know about, everyone should know about, and everyone should listen about these things. The most important things, we are always give zakat to people helping, right? So we have right to get zakat from you. Is your own poor people, or you can give any to anyone in the world?
So zakat primarily should be distributed sort of locally.
Okay.
Okay, locally being because obviously if you've got somebody on your street,
Kareem.
yeah, somebody is on your street, you got a neighbor, parosi, and they're struggling, they don't have the means to look after themselves. Sometimes if there's a poor sister on her own raising a family, then really one should try to give it locally so that it can help.
We should try.
We should, of course.
So,
if on the other hand you have a family member who is in an extreme situation in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, and you know that they're in a very difficult situation, then one can transport their zakat and send it across there as well. Thirdly, if there's a dire need, like we hear sometimes in Gaza, in Syria, or in some other country where there's a dire need, or there's a flood, or there's a disaster, and people are in desperate need of food, then that's the third group of people we can send it to. So really in the order, it should be local. It can be a family member who's not local, and it can be anybody who is in extreme difficulty due to some hardship.
it's very nice answer. Thank you.
Barakallah fi.
Jazakallahu khair.
Barakallah fi.
Just off the back of this question, family members, are we permitted to some and not others? For example, if someone is a dependent, are we permitted to give them zakat?
Good question, mashallah. A dependent you can't give zakat to because they have a right over you anyway. So for example, your children are our dependents. So from a Shari'i perspective, we are responsible for nafaqah for them anyway. So we can't give them zakat because then we're not fulfilling our responsibility as their father for the nafaqah. So you can't give to ascendants mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, or to descendants, son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson. But you can't give to brother, nephew, auntie, those who aren't direct ascendants or descendants. Good question though, Jazakumullah khair.
But Hadiya for
Hadiya you can give to anyone.
Okay.
Even you can give Hadiya to Mufti Sahib who comes from Bradford.
Hadiya, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, especially when Mufti Sahib has come from Bradford, you give him lots of Hadiya.
Alhamdulillah. The most important things we should know about. Yes, thank you.
Anything else? This dear brother.
So you mentioned that zakat is applicable on the net amount. So for example, if my nisab date is let's say today,
Yep.
and I have received £5,000 income from somewhere, so
Yep.
I have to pay zakat on that one as well.
That's correct.
My understanding was that zakat is applicable on your surplus, like anything you have for almost 1 year, and that is a surplus to your necessity. So for example, you mentioned the women, they have to pay zakat on their jewelry as well.
That's right.
But what I have heard so far, like if you are wearing that jewelry on regular basis, that's not applicable for zakat.
There is a view within the Maliki, Shafi and Hanbali madhab that when a woman wears gold, okay, as a regular, as like she wears her clothes, then there's no zakat due on it. According to the Hanafi legal school, there is zakat due on it.
So whatever you own on that specific
If it's
day,
gold, whatever you own on that day, of course you can take your immediate expenditures in the sense that those expenditures which are going to come. So for example, if you have the electricity bill that's due, or you've got a gas bill that's due, or you've got your rent which is due. So those deductions you can take because that debt is imminent on you in the next week or the week after. You can exclude them. But generally speaking, anything else you will consider and you will work out the total, even if you receive something yesterday or the day before, and give 2.5% of that. Is there any sisters here? Do you know? Oh, there's none. Okay. I'm just saying that at least they can write their questions on a paper and send it through if there's any sisters there. Yeah. If there's any sisters there, please write your questions on a paper. I don't know if there's any papers. Is anybody with papers here? Yeah? Write your questions on a paper, pass them to the Ustad, and then they can pass it on. Sorry, you can ask a question, brother?
Yes, so you mentioned previously, for example, an imminent debt, something you're going to pay off. Sorry, something you're going to pay that year. Maybe you can withhold zakat on it or something like that.
Yeah, so for example, if you got a debt due in the year, so let's just say I owe you £5,000, right? So that is a debt that is due, okay? And therefore, you tell me, Mufti, make sure you pay me in the next 2-3 months, please, right? Because I need it. So I know I have to pay you this debt, right? So I can deduct that debt from my assets before I calculate the zakat. But if you say to me, it's okay, pay me when you want, I'm not bothered, and I don't make intention to give you it this year, then I shouldn't deduct it. Okay? According to other madhahib, they say don't deduct it. Reason being is that if you look in the times gone by, the Muslims used to earn maybe twice in the year. So if you were a farmer, then you harvested crop maybe once a year. Your wheat came once a year. Your dates came once a year. Sometimes a crop can be harvested twice a year. So you only earned twice in the year. If you were a tradesman and you traveled to Yemen or travel to Sham, you might travel also twice a year. We obviously earn monthly. So for us, really, should we be removing debts? So that's why it's encouraged not to. But if a person does, there'll be no sin upon him if he did that.
So based on what I mentioned, let's say a person knows they're getting married at the end of the year, or even they're going Hajj.
Yeah.
For instance, they should still pay zakat.
They have to because it's not a debt.
Perfect.
And it could be that they could die tomorrow. And if they die tomorrow, they never went for Hajj. And if they died tomorrow, they never got married and they didn't give zakat on it. And therefore, they're sinful. Okay, it's like me saying, okay, there's a certain act of worship coming. Should I prepare for that or not? So it's best to understand it from that way.
So I have a quick question, sorry if you don't mind. So if someone, let's say his zakat date is Rabiul Awwal, and he doesn't know, and so obviously the prices fluctuate, like gold and something like that, but he's giving zakat in Ramadan. So in that situation, what would we like?
So he should use Rabiul Awwal as his
He
date.
doesn't know that. Let's say he.
But then if he doesn't know, then he wouldn't know. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't hold him accountable for something he did not know. But if he does know, he thinks, you know what, I think it's in Rabiul Awwal, but I'll just give it in Ramadan anyway. Then he needs to he needs to give it earlier. Otherwise, you should give it in Rabi Awwal and then give it again in Ramadan. So a brother rang me yesterday, the day before, and he said he wants to move his, he goes, I can't remember what my nisab date was, but I fixed Ramadan because it was easy to remember. Now I want to remove it from Ramadan and put it back to the other day. So I said, okay, what you need to do is give zakat in Ramadan and then give it again in Dhul Qa'dah, right? And then next year give it in Dhul Qa'dah. So you're not kind of cheating by kind of moving the date backwards and then saying, oh, I'm going to move the day, and then, oh, I'm going to move the day, and you just keep moving the day. So give it on that day and then give it again within the same year on the other one, and now you can change your nisab date. Yes? You got another question? Bismillah, fire away.
Bismillah. So I have it's two separate ones.
Yeah.
One is if, for instance, you gave out money on lend to people, and comes zakat time, you didn't have enough to pay that zakat. Do you just delay the zakat that you're going to pay for when you have the money?
Okay, so if say you've got £20,000 and you were being a very nice and helpful person, gave that 20,000 to different people to help them, you've now got nothing, right? In your own hand, you've got a few £100. So you can still calculate, obviously, that's your mal, that 20 grand is yours, it's not theirs. So you would give zakat on that 20 grand. And what was the number that we came up with? 500. Okay, so £500 is due, but you've only got £200, right? So you've only got £200 on you. So now you owe £500 zakat. So you can either give it from that 200 and wait till you get another 300 and then give it there, or you can wait until you get 500 and give it. So you can delay your zakat. It's not a good idea. You should write it down somewhere in case death comes to you. But you are permitted to delay it until that is settled. Or you can go to the people that owe you money and say, can I have £200 each from you because I need to settle something. And the second question?
The second part is, let's say you paid your zakat for the year. Next first of Ramadan, you have to pay your zakat again. But in between that time, something happens, like we mentioned, that family members die in need. Can you give your zakat in advance?
You can. So for example, let's just say it is 6 months before Ramadan, right? And somebody comes to you and they're in a very difficult situation and you think, I want to give this brother my zakat. You then say, well, okay, I've got 15 grand in my bank account. By Ramadan, I think I'll have 20 grand because you know roughly how much you put away every month. So you think roughly I'll have 20 grand in Ramadan. So you work out your zakat accordingly. And what's the zakat on 20 grand? 500. Okay, that's the one number you're all going to learn by the end of this. Right? It's £500 I'm going to give. So this brother, I'm going to give £300 to. So you give him £300. You wait now and your nisab date comes and you've actually got 25 grand. Not 20 grand. You, mashallah, you worked overtime, did some Uber. Right? You got more money now. So now you know you've got to make up that difference of that 5 grand because you only did your zakat on 20 grand. On the other hand, you could end up having less money because your car broke down and you have to repair your car and that cost you £1,000. So you've actually only got 18 grand now in your bank account. But you gave zakat according to 20 grand, which means now you have that that extra bit surplus so you can pass that on to the following year. So yes, you can give zakat early in the short.
So like he said that zakat is applicable on the net amount. So what I have seen back in Pakistan is like when the zakat is due, people before that they do some sort of expenses. So then the net amount goes down. So what is your say on this one?
As in they do that intentionally, knowing that there's zakat day is coming, so they think, all right, quickly, let's spend this money.
Like I have, let's say, 1 million rupees in my bank account.
Yep.
And before that, zakat is applicable because mostly it's done in Ramadan.
Yeah, I quickly
So
spend it.
They just take out the money and they
Yeah.
spend it, and then they say we don't have enough money.
Okay, so if they go below nisab, then technically speaking, there is no zakat due. Obviously, if they're trying to avoid the law of Allah,
Like they are having that money for the whole year.
yeah,
And just before that,
But what do they do? Spend it?
Yeah,
do they take it out or do they spend it?
they just spend it.
Yeah. So
Whatever reason.
yeah. So technically, if they go below nisab, they don't give zakat. However, if they're trying to play with the law of Allah, then Allah will decide what He does with them, because He knows. But that's between them and between Allah. But as a mufti, somebody comes up to me and says that I was above nisab, and the day before I spent all my money. Do I need to give zakat? Then we would say no, because on your nisab date you didn't have money. And it's your choice how you spend your money. Obviously, there's a separate question of israf, that were you, spending it in extravagantly and, called all your friends over and held a big party or something, or you did it to avoid zakat, then this is a sin, obviously. That's a separate sin. But on the issue of zakat itself, that if you're below nisab, then there is no zakat due.
I was going to ask about the Amalin Alayha.
Yes.
You said it's the government that
Yes.
appoints them.
Yes. There is a
Our government.
no. So there is a contemporary big debate on this. So because it says khuz min amwalihim, take from their wealth. Now the only people who've been given authority to take our wealth is if we had a sultan or a khalifa or some Amir al-Mu'mineen whose responsibility is to make sure that we pray salah, make sure that we fast, make sure that masjids get built, and make sure that zakat is taken and distributed. So in our home countries, or where our forefathers were from or grandfathers were from, then in those countries obviously there are systems where zakat is taken. Sometimes it's taken from your bank account directly, sometimes it's taken from your wages, sometimes, there's different methodologies that are used. So in those cases, yes, if say for example, brother mentioned Pakistan, so say Pakistan wants to collect and distribute zakat. It's called the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, so it's got the word Islam in their name. So they say what we'll do is they can assign employees, government employees, that will go and collect zakat and distribute zakat. So the government can pay those employees using zakat, shar'an. Now we come to this country.
Percentage they can take up to your...
They can take up to 12.5% because it's 100 divided by 8 is, as you know yourself, 12.5%, Mr. Mathematician. So it'll be up to 12.5%. Now we come to the UK. UK does not have an Amir al-Mu'mineen, okay? It doesn't have a Khilafah, it doesn't have a Sultan, it doesn't have a Muslim leader, okay? We're in a non-Muslim land. We're not in Darul Islam. So in this case, obviously, nobody can take that authority. We can encourage it, but no one can say that I'm going to take your zakat from you, brother. Because you're going to say, why are you taking my zakat from me? See you later, you have no authority, you have no wilaya over me. All right? So in this case, that's why some charities want to bring that about. Some charities in England, charities in America, charities in Canada, charities in Europe say, we want to pay our staff members from the Amilina Alayha section because they are also collecting zakat and they're also distributing zakat. But the more traditional scholars will say, no, you can't do that because this requires imamat. And you don't have imamat and you do not have wilayat. So you can't do that because you are just doing a fardhi kifaya. This is not fardhi ayn on you. If you were a government, then it's fardhi ayn on you. But because you're just a charity, you're trying to help. And also, unfortunately, even though there's some justification for it from a fiqh basis, it opens up fraud. So you see, I can start a charity. Right? I'll start a charity, I collect 200 grand and I give myself 100 grand wage. Right? Because I'm amilin alayha. I'm collecting and distributing zakat. So it opens it up to this fraudulent behavior. So it's a bit risky. So there is a group of ulama that say charities can be amilin alayha. They can use it because they're doing the responsibility of the government, because in the UK there is no Islamic government, so therefore charities have to fulfill that role, like there is no, for the hilal if you are in Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, then there is the country determines when it's hilal. If you're from Morocco, for example, the government will say when it's Ramadan. In the UK, our King Charles is not going to tell us when Ramadan starts, right? So Keir Starmer is not going to tell us when Ramadan starts. So we have to go to our ulama. So the ulama fulfill that role, but we're not obligated to follow. And that's why we have so many people following different things. We've got Saudi followers, we've got local followers, we've got Morocco followers, we've got, KFC followers. So we have different positions. But if there was an imara in the UK, then they would say, this is our sighting, everybody has to follow it. And they would have wilaya, you'd have to follow it. And that's the difference. Okay? Barakallah fi.
In spot method you mentioned, does the new wealth you gain halfway through the year have to be kept for a year before you pay zakat?
No. Once the nisab is triggered, then any new of the same asset which is added to it, you will work out the zakat on the spot date. So that does not matter. Say for example, I get a new asset, I suddenly go into sheep farming. So I've got a nisab date for my money. Say I got that when I was 15 years old. My father gave me £1,000. Alhamdulillah, I waited a year and I've been given zakat accordingly to that date up until this day now. But now I decided this year I'm going to go into sheep farming. So I buy lots of sheep. I will have a separate nisab date for my sheep because it's a different asset type. So I have to wait a year to pass on the sheep. But any money I get, I just keep adding to it because I've already triggered the nisab asset of money. Gold, silver. So that's that distinction. So no matter, even if the day before, a month before, 6 months before, you add it to the total and you work it out accordingly.
Silver money is one part.
gold, silver money, and now, electronic money, whether it's, cryptocurrency, or, digitalized assets, whatever, all them are being put under the broad concept of money.
When going back to find your Islamic date, do you use local citing?
Depends which you follow already. So if you follow local citing, then you will go find the local citing date. If you follow Saudiya, then you'll go find the Saudiya date, which you'll find in the Qura calendar, so that'll be easy.
How does Zakat work with pension schemes currently working and money occurring in pensions?
Yeah, so most general pension schemes are those which you contribute towards. Okay, the kind of final scheme salaries have final salary schemes have gone. So when you're contributing towards those, then you have to work out where that pension is being invested in. So the pension is like an investment. So you see where that pension is invested. Is it invested in stocks? Is it invested in gold? Is it invested in property? And depending on that type of asset, you work all that out and then you give zakat accordingly. So yes, on a pension, you give your zakat, working out the zakatable assets from there. Alhamdulillah, I think we've dealt with most questions. So if there's no more, we can bring the session to a close. Jazakumullah khairan wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.